Today we have a really good, really awesome guest. His name is Tim. This man has walked the path of addiction and found sobriety and servitude. And this man is just amazing. We had the chance to talk before the recording, and I tell you, we could have gone forever. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves, this man is here to tell his amazing story to inspire those that are out there that are struggling with addiction. There is hope for you. And Tim is a great inspiration. So enjoy. Tim, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great, Tony. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally meet up and make this happen.
Yeah.
Again, like I used to be very impatient with things, but now I tell myself it happens when it's supposed to happen. And this is when you and I were supposed to meet up and talk today.
I know, right? We tried a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? And
Yeah.
everything just kind of went with holidays. That's what I normally say. It gets busy around the holidays, so I get it. But I got you here now, and tell the audience about yourself because I listened to it. I'll tell you, his story had me in goosebumps. You guys are going to be amazed. Sit back, enjoy, write it down. At the end, his information is going to be there. I encourage you to contact this man. He's amazing. So,
Well, I'll go through it, and I mean, you already heard most of it, but I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I haven't moved anywhere else, lived anywhere else except for the time I was in the Marine Corps from 18 to 20 years old, 20 and a half. And I grew up primarily with my mother. My father and mother did get a divorce when I was in first grade. And like I told you, it had a major impact on me as a young child.
mhm.
I grew up without a father figure, I should say. My mom ended up meeting a man when I was in fifth grade. He ended up becoming my stepfather. But like I told you, he was kind of like more of an uncle, a big brother kind of a deal. The relationship was not a loving father figure relationship. There was no, I'm proud of your sons. There were no hugs, no kisses, no, you can do it. It was more of like, he taught me how to be a carpenter. He taught me how to snow ski and water ski, taught me how to fish, taught me how to drive a boat, like things that it's necessary. I mean, I use all of them today,
Yeah.
but there was no emotional attachment to this man. Um, so as a young boy, um, I thought it was my fault that my father left. I have
Mhm.
a brother who's 11 years older than me, and I would tell myself it must be me. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I didn't clean my room. Maybe I didn't bring home good enough grades. Maybe I was, acting out. And I held on to that from the age of 6 all the way up until just about my age of 40 years old, you know, and I use that sometimes to drink and drug. I would tell myself, well, my own father didn't love me, so why should I care about myself? I'll just drink and get high, and who cares? You know what I mean? Because my own father didn't love me, and it's funny because I listened to a motivational speaker a while back ago. I think it was E.T.
I love him.
And he says, I'm sitting there and I'd be like, when's my father coming? When's my father coming? When's my father coming? It's because of him I'm not successful. It's because of him I don't have this. I don't have that. He said, and finally it dawned on me. My father ain't coming. And this is on me.
Hmm.
And he said, it was at that moment I stopped blaming him for everything. And I started taking accountability for my own actions. Well, for me, that didn't happen until I was 40 years old. And I was still in active addiction. So I wasn't really taking full accountability of my actions. But I had become aware at that time that my father wasn't coming for me and he wasn't going to help me out. Um, and it was at that time that we had a conversation with my mom. I was about 40. And I told her, all these years, because I was getting bad with drinking and drugging. And she was like, what's going on? Why are you doing this? And I said, well, one of the reasons is dad was never around. He didn't love me. And she was like, that's not what? She's like, no, your father loves you. He was just running around on me. I couldn't take it. I had to let him go. But your father does love you. He's selfish, he's egotistical, and he's all about himself. But he does love you. And that was just hard for me to grasp because even to this day, like I've been sober. Next week will be 21 months next week. I've seen my dad 3 times in the last 21 months. And He lives 20 minutes away from me. Um, our relationship is being mended, okay?
Mhm.
And I chose to do that for me. I chose that so I could heal, not so he could heal. That's one thing I've learned in sobriety and recovery is it. It's funny because recovery is kind of a selfish act because you have to take yourself first. You have to make yourself first. Without my sobriety, my family is not going to be around. Without my sobriety, I'm not going to be able to mend relationships with friends and family
Mhm.
or who else it would be. So becoming sober and living the steps of recovery, which are two different things, because you can be a sober person, but living the steps of recovery, the I my program was the 12 steps and living the traditions. I got a sponsor, I got a home group. And for the first year and a half, I did meetings. I mean, the first 90 days I did 98 and 90. Then I did 4 days a week, then I broke it down to 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week. And now I do the Zoom meetings, I do podcasts, I do interviews for magazines, I go and I do public speaking now.
Okay.
So for me, that is that's my meeting. That's my therapy.
Right.
I get to speak to people that I've never met before. They get to tell me their stories. And that keeps my mind fresh about why I'm doing this and who else I could help out there.
Mhm.
But I held on to that for a very long time. And going into senior year, like I told you before, in ninth grade was the first time I ever tried alcohol. And it was literally a welcome to high school party, and I drank and I got drunk and I got sick the next day. And I remember my mom picking me up and she was like, I'm not going to punish you. Your whole weekend is ruined. I hope this deters you from drinking. And it did. I was not interested in alcohol whatsoever. In high school, I was skateboarding and I was on a bunch of teams down here skateboarding with some big time skateboard names. And I was a Golden Glove and Junior Olympic boxer at the time. So alcohol and drugs were not in my picture whatsoever. But the senior year came around, and that summer before senior year, it kind of dawned on me that my grades were not good enough to go into college, and a lot of my friends were getting into drugs, and I didn't want to go that route. So my father, my brother, and both my grandfathers were all in the military. And I said, you know what, I'm going to join the military. I did kind of make them mad a little bit because they were all in the army, and I'm like, I'm not doing the army. I want to be the best of the best. I'm going in the Marines. So they made fun of me about that. I was like, whatever. I was like, I'm going in the Marines. So the summer before senior year, I joined the Marines. So I already knew once I graduated, I'm going in the Marines when I graduated. So for me, it was let me have some fun this year. Let me blow off some steam. Let me get it out of my system. So I started going to parties, started drinking. And my experience was once I started to drink, my wall would come down. And I would be the guy like, well, what else is at the party? Let me try some things. Let me get it out of my system. Because when I go to boot camp, it's going to get real, and none of this. I'm not going to be able to do any of this. So I started smoking pot, started taking painkillers, and taking the hits of LSD, and eating mushrooms. And a couple of times I got my hands on some PCP, and I smoked that. Again, it was just a phase to me. It was just a phase. So I graduate, I go to boot camp. Drugs stopped 100%. There was no drugs while I was in the military whatsoever. But my drinking escalated 10 times from the time I was doing it my senior year. When we got done at 4:30 in the afternoon, we left the base. We went to the strip clubs and the bars, and we drank. And like I told you before, the motto around the bases were if you're old enough to take a bullet for the country, you're old enough to have a cold beer. So there was no deterrent for us as far as, oh, you're underage, you're not 21. No, it was kind of a reward that we signed that line up into including our death that we would fight for this country. So we're ordered, we can have a cold beer. And our sergeants will be at these same bars, late 20s, early 30s, and they would just say, don't get in a fight, don't get arrested, make sure your ass is up at 3 o'clock and ready to run by 4. So there was no deterrent for us not to be drinking as young men. We kind of use that as a badge of honor. How hard can we train? How hard can we party and get up and do it again? That was pretty much my entire 2.5 years in the Marines. And I say 2.5 years because I didn't finish till 4 years. We ended up going to Somalia in 1995 for a 6 month. It wasn't during wartime. The war had ended. We went there as for training and to be peace officers, basically.
Mhm.
So it wasn't hostile. It was a hostile environment to us as far as people didn't want us there, but there was no shooting going on. There was no active war. I'm not a combat veteran or anything like that, but I was able to see the ramifications of war and what it did to its people and how and it did affect me. I didn't think it did at the beginning, but it did. So I get back and I got about a year and a half left on my enlistment, and I was drinking really bad, and I didn't want to train. I didn't want to be there anymore. I mentally gave up, and I ended up breaking my ankle. And they come to me and they're like, "Well, you have to have surgery on your ankle." I'm like, "I don't want surgery on my ankle." In '95, the Navy doctors were not known for doing a great job on you surgically. So I was like, "I do not touch my ankle. What are my other options?" And they were like, "Well, you can change MOSs." And I'm like, I didn't join the Marine Corps other than be in the infantry. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be 0311 infantry. I wanted to hold an M16. I wanted to go to war. That's what wanted to be in the Marines. I don't want to be uh they call them POGs, persons other than a grunt, like a pencil pusher or something like that. I said I wanted to be a grunt. That's what I came into being. If I can't be that, I don't want to be in the military anymore. So they actually let me. They honorable discharged me, and I had a year and a half of the Montgomery GI Bill saved up at that time,
Mhm.
and they gave that to me, and I got out of the Marine Corps. And I come home, and the first month was great. It was a decompression period. I didn't have to get up. I didn't have to have my hair cut. I didn't have to shave. I didn't have to wear my uniform. But like I told you, the second month came, and I kind of got that oh shit factor. I got to get a job. Got to get a car. I'm living at my mom's house. I'm almost 21. The third month came, and I started to feel lost. I started to feel kind of like a loser. I didn't have a purpose anymore. I didn't have an identity. I wasn't in the Marines. I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And it's funny, I'm looking back at it now. And when I say this, at 21, for me, I needed to know where my life was going. I needed to have that goal, that something in sight.
Right.
Now at 46, man, I was a baby at 21. I barely knew anything at 21. And it's
Mhm.
okay in your early 20s to not have it all figured out, because isn't this about a journey in life? Isn't it about learning things along the way to finally become the person that you're supposed to be? So I think I put a lot of pressure on myself, not knowing exactly what I was here for or why I was discharged from the military. I didn't understand that it was part of my process. It
Right.
was part of my purpose in life. It was just part of my story. So the third month came and I got really depressed, and I go into my father's armoire and I grab his gun. I sit it on my lap and I'm looking at it and I'm crying. And I'm looking at it, and I had the right mind to call my girlfriend at the time. And I said, "Hey, something's wrong. I'm looking at a gun. Like, I don't know what I'm doing." And she was over my house within 5 minutes, and she takes it from me. Later that evening, when my mom gets home, I'd say, "Mom, there's something wrong." I didn't tell her I had the gun in my lap. She would have had me committed into an institution, like the whole deal. And I wasn't doing that. So I said, "There's something wrong. I'm not feeling right. I'm feeling depressed and sad. And something's wrong." So we go to the doctors, and the first solution was they take a bunch of tests. First solution was, we have to put you on medicine. You have bipolar 1 manic depressive disorder. And I wanted to say, if you're listening to this, please be honest with your doctors, regardless of why they put you on certain medications, whether it's for a psychiatric reason or a health reason, blood pressure, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, whatever your ailment may be, that they're putting you on some type of medicines.
Mhm.
Please be honest with them, because I was never honest with them. I never told them I was drinking. I was smoking pot again because I was out of the Marine Corps. I got my hands on some pain pills whenever I could. So I had drugs and alcohol in my system. So the medicines that they were putting me on, the milligrams that they prescribed me, were not working. And then when I went back for checkups, they would ask me, how's it going? It's not working. I don't understand. Oh, well, maybe we have you on the wrong medicines. You know, some medicines aren't for people. We'll try you on these medicines. Oh, well, maybe the milligrams are off. We'll up the dosages and we'll add this one to the medicine. So, you know, these three work good together. And that was an on and off game from the age of 21 all the way up until the age of 44 until I got into rehab.
Yeah.
I would be on medicine, off medicine. I wouldn't take it. Um, it wouldn't work. I'd fall into deep depressions. I would lose jobs. Like I told you, I went through 46 employments from the age of 21 all the way up into the last couple of years. And I say the last couple of years because I'm a carpenter, and I've been a carpenter for the last 11 years, but with different companies.
Right.
So it's still the same field, but I've gone through like 6 or 7 different companies in the last 11 years just in carpentry. But I would just get tired of work. I wouldn't want to go. I call that sick. I would just quit. Not even call them, just not show up. I'd say, screw that. I'll get another job, and that's what I did. Not pinpointing the fact that it was the drugs and the alcohol and the medicine that I was taking. They weren't mixing. So I was depressed. I had anxiety. I had panic attacks. I was drinking. I was smoking pot and taking painkillers whenever I could get my hands on them. So I had this extremely bad chemical imbalance going on mentally in my head, and it was affecting my life with my family. Because at this point, I got married and I had 2 daughters at this point. And like I told you, 32 comes around, I lose another job. My wife's like, "What's going on? You keep losing these jobs. You know, we have a house to pay for. We have kids to take care of. You know, what's going on?" And I'm like, "I just don't know. I lost. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. My self-esteem is gone. My self-worth, I don't have any. My self-confidence gone. I miss sports." And she's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" I said, I missed fighting because it made me. There's one thing about playing sports with a team, and then there's a one-on-one activity where there is nobody else accountable for your actions, and it's a mental chess game. It's a physical game, and I always liked challenging myself in that aspect. You know, I know this. What do you know? How are you going to counteract it? What am I going to counteract? You know, how am I going to come back? You know, I always liked that chess match, that back and forth. Who could get the best, and who could finally get that checkmate?
Yes.
You know, I always loved that. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do mixed martial arts. And she's like, "Okay, I'll give you 1 year. But at the end of this year, if you're not making money, if you're not doing anything, you gotta let it go. Got to get back and get a job." And enough's enough. You know, we got 2 kids. Enough's enough. So that 1 year, within 6 months, I was training. I got my first fight. That 1 year ended up being a 3-year long mixed martial arts career. I say career because I was making a little bit of money, like 1,500, sometimes 1,000. But I was fighting at casinos. I was fighting on TV. You know, now that I mentioned that, and I said I didn't tell you this on the pre-thing, but there's something about coming out from the locker room and the lights are going off and the people are screaming and your music's going off. That endorphin dump that you get from coming out, no drug or alcohol to me has ever been able to match that feeling of a godlike feeling at that moment. Like you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof and nobody's taking you out, and you're looking at that guy, you're getting ready to go into that cage, you're about to lock it behind you, and it's go time. Like there's nothing, there's no coming out of this until the bell rings or somebody's getting knocked out or tapped out. That feeling was unmatched by any drug or alcohol that I've ever taken, which I forgot to say that when I was talking to you, but that endorphins, that dopamine dump, it was just amazing. So I get to my fight, and In the fight, I end up tearing my rotator cuff. And my wife finds out and she's like, we're done. That's it. Now we got to go see what's going on with your wrist. I mean, your shoulder, because you're 35, you had 3 years, you're done. That's fine. So I go to the doctors and I tore my labrum in 3 places and messed up my rotator cuff. So I had to have major reconstructive surgery on my right arm. And that's a 9-month rehab, which I then get addicted to prescribed opioids from my doctor. And the first month was hydrocodones, and I would go back and say, they're just not doing it for me. Okay, we'll switch you over to Percocets. And then I'd go back. How they working? Well, they kind of mess my stomach up. They give me cramps, Okay, we're going to put you on this new medicine that's been out called Oxycontins, and they're not addictive. And you can stop them whenever you want because, they don't have an addictive precursor to you. And you can just stop. There's no withdrawals or anything like that. So they give me Oxycontins, 20 milligrams. And like a good addict, I'm not taking them 1 every 4 hours. I'm taking them 2 and 3 every 4 hours. I'm finishing the bottle 2 weeks before my next prescription. Mm-hmm. I would ultimately have to call some of my friends and say, hey, can you hook me up for the next 10 days till my doctor fills my prescription? And that went on for 4 years, to the point where I got so scared that I was going to die one night. I was drinking 12-pack of beer on top of it. I was taking 8 to 10, 20 milligram Percocets. And I legitimately got scared. I was like, I'm going to go to sleep one night and not wake up, because this is how people die. And I got used to taking them for so long and drinking so much that I just figured, my body was used to it. But something told me, you're going to die one night. And my addictive personality, the disease of addiction, how it's cunning and baffling, and its goal is to take your life. I don't care what anybody says. The disease of addiction's goal is to take your life. It doesn't make anything better in your life. It ruins everything. It takes everything from you, and then at the end, it takes your soul. And that's what its ultimate. That's what it's designed to do, is take everything from you, up into including your life. And I'm sitting on my bedroom. I'm like, well, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die going to sleep tonight. And I reach over and I grab my pill bottle and I open it up and have 18 Oxycontins in there. And I take all 18. And I go out into the living room and I drink a 12-pack of beer within like 45 minutes, a little bit less than an hour. I go back into my bedroom and I lay on the bed and I say, please, God, don't let me wake up, because I can't live this way anymore. And I just want the pain to stop. And I pass out. And I wake up the next day about 16, 18 hours later. It was evening time. And I remember waking up and the first thought that came to my mind was, holy shit, I'm not dead. The second thought was, go into the bathroom, and I grab my refill and I dump all 30 of them down the toilet. And I look at myself in the mirror and I said, this is going to get bad. But no matter how bad this gets, remember this feeling, because we're never taking pain medicine ever again. And the next 10 days of my life was pure hell. The withdrawals, the throwing up, the going to the bathroom, the anxiety, the panic, the chills, the night sweats, the insomnia. I had restless legs. It was just going through my whole body. But every morning when I woke up and I looked in the mirror, in between the crying and the snotting and the throwing up, I would say, remember this feeling. We're never doing this again. Mm-hmm. That lasted for 10 days. On that 11th day, it was March 15th, 2017, I decided to go for a ride in my truck. I'm lost. I'm like, why am I here? How did I not die? But as I told you before, I didn't have faith. I didn't believe that if something created me, if something loved me so much, then how could it allow me to suffer so bad? Mm-hmm. So my faith in a higher power, or God, or Jesus, or whatever anybody believes in a higher power spiritually, I didn't believe it existed. Because if something loved me that much, why would it allow me to suffer so bad? Mm-hmm. So I get in my truck and I drive through this park we have down here. It's beautiful. And I get around to this tree where 1996, my best friend, Bill, hit the tree, unfortunately lost control of his vehicle and hit the tree and lost his life at the age of 18. And there's a memorial set up on this tree that his parents put. There's a picture there. There's an old book that you can write to him and put flowers on. And I get to this tree and I'm crying. I'm like, why am I here? What's my purpose? How did I not die? I just need a sign. I need to know that I'm not alone. I need to know that there's something else out there because I don't believe in it. And I don't know why I survived. I can't stop drinking, but I was able to stop these pills. Like, why am I here? Please just send me a sign and let me know that I'm not alone, that everything is going to be okay. I'm like boggling my head. I can't wrap my head around it. And I get in my truck and I go to leave, but I'm like crying and I'm snotting and I can barely drive. So I pull over on the side of the road, but I can't pull over on the right side because the cars are parked and people are walking their dogs and hiking and fishing. So I had to pull over on the left side of the road on facing oncoming traffic. 10 minutes goes by and I'm wiping my face and blowing my nose and stuff. And this car pulls up and we're hood to hood. And I watch the man get out of his vehicle and he opens up the back door and he's got his dog. He's about to go walk across the street and walk his dog by the water. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, man, he looks familiar. And all of a sudden it dawns on me. It was my best friend who died in 1996. It was his father. This is March 16th, 2017, 21 years later. I haven't seen this man since the day of my best friend's funeral. And I get out of the truck and I look at him. I say, Mr. Bill, is that you? And he looks over at me. He says, Timmy, what are you doing here? And I fall to the curb and I'm crying. I'm like, I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know my purpose. And he walks over to me and he puts his hand on my shoulder. And he says, Timmy, I'm not supposed to be here today. I'm supposed to be in South Carolina at a family reunion trip. My bags are packed in my truck. My wife came to me in a dream last night and told me to come walk the dog this morning at 10 a.m. I believe I was sent here to see you. And I said, Mr. Bill, I just stopped at Billy's tree and asked him for a sign that I wasn't alone, that something else was out there. And we hugged and we talked for about 10 minutes. And I remember him saying, everything is going to be okay. And I get in my truck and I go to drive out. And, this is the funny thing about the addictive disease, because it tricks you into manipulating your thoughts. It's cunning, it's baffling. And as I'm leaving, I'm saying everything's going to be okay. I got somebody watching over me. It's going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
My addictive personality, the disease of addiction, steps in and says, you're right. Everything is going to be okay. So you don't have to stop drinking. You don't have to change your life because you're being watched. Nothing is going to happen to you. And like I had mentioned before, the next 4 years of my life was the most alcohol I have ever drank in my entire life. The 12 to 18 beers, weren't doing it. So I switched to IPAs, the lagers, the heavier beers with the 10, 11, 12% alcohol beer. And I was still searching for that missing piece because I don't have my pain pills anymore. I used to taking them for 4 years. So I had the bright idea to pick up some miniature Fireball shots of whiskey. And I remember taking them, and the first 2 or 3 that I took, I got that warm blanket feeling that the pain pills used to give me once they kicked in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, everything's going to be all right. And that was it. That was what I was missing. So it started off with just me getting 4 or 5 of them a day with my 12-pack of beer.
Mm-hmm.
And then over a couple months, that 12-pack of beer just diminished away completely. And I would stop at 7 o'clock in the morning and pick up a sleeve of Fireball, which is 10 of them. I'd finish all 10 of them by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And at 3:30, when I got off of work, I'd stop immediately at the first liquor store that was close to the job site, pick up 10 more. And I would usually finish half of that before I got home, because it's usually about a 35-minute drive home. So I'd have 5 of them down before I even walked in the front door, eat dinner, finish the other 5 by 8:30 and be back out to the liquor store, which is unfortunately right across the street from my home, and get another 10. And I would finish 5, sometimes 10 of those before I would pass out by 9:30. So that last year of my drinking was when it got to the highest level I've ever drank. I was drinking 25 to 30 of those miniatures a day. And like I told you, I measured them out one time just to see how much liquor was in one of those Fireball miniatures,
Sure.
and it's 2.5 shots. And 2.5 times 20 is already 50. Add another 10. I'm looking at between 65 to 80 shots that I was drinking every single day of Fireball whiskey. Um, and people ask me, why didn't I just get a big bottle? Well, I didn't want to have the accountability of knowing that I drank a whole big bottle and I'm going back for more. There's little miniatures. I could drink them and throw them out. I could hide them around the house. The wife wouldn't know how much I was drinking. I could keep them hidden in a compartment in my truck and drive them and throw them out the window. And I would forget sometimes how much I drank. So I'd be able to stop at the liquor store and get more. It was accountability. I didn't want to know exactly how bad my alcoholism had gotten. So for me, it was, I believe I was doing it out of shame and embarrassment as well. I didn't truly want to know exactly how much I was drinking, but it's funny how your disease tricks you into playing these little games with you. Instead of me just getting a big bottle, maybe if I would have done that, I would have stopped sooner, because I would have been like, wow, I'm really drinking a lot. But those little bottles, once you drink 10 of them, you're feeling good.
Yeah.
And you pretty much forgetting what's going on anyway. So
that's true. No worries.
yeah, no way. Everything's out the window at that point. But it come down to that last year of me drinking, and I told you I just got a brand new truck. I was coming home from the liquor store with my 10 in my hand, and I hit something, and I legitimately still to this day don't know what I hit. I don't know if it was a parked car, a concrete wall, a barrier, or something. But I remember walking in the front door and telling my wife, I hit something. I'm not dealing with it. I'm not dealing with it tonight. I'm going to bed. And I go to bed. I wake up the next morning like a typical blackout drunk, and I say, good morning. I'm going to the store and getting milk and eggs. And what else do we need for breakfast? And my wife says, how are you going to do that? And I said, in my truck in the driveway. She says, go outside and look at your truck. So I go outside, and my right passenger mirror is completely off the truck. It's just missing. And my right front tire is off the rim, hanging up underneath of a bumper. And I'm just sitting there looking at it, shaking my head, and she pops out her head out the window, or out the front door, sorry. And she says, you don't remember what you hit, do you? I said, no, I don't. She said, Tim, you could have killed yourself. You could have killed somebody else. You can't stay here anymore. I don't want you around the girls. You got to go and leave. You got to leave and figure this out. But I don't want you here anymore. You got to go figure this out. I can't take it anymore. So I go in the house. I pack my bags, and I call my buddy. I said, hey, can I come to your house for a couple of days? Just let things blow over. In a couple of days, she'll let me back in, and everything will be cool. And he's like, sure, man, come on over. You can hang out here for a couple of days, and then until things blow over. So I get to his house, and we talk for a little bit. And he's like, well, man, look, your wife just kicked you out. It's a Friday night. We might as well go to the bar. And I'm like, you know what? You are absolutely right. Because now I have a justification to go get drunk. My wife just kicked me out of the house. So I called AAA. They put a new spare tire on my truck, so I was able to drive my truck over. And we get to the bar, and we get completely drunk. And as I'm leaving the bar, this is less than 12 hours later, I rear-end somebody at the red light in the same truck. And I get out, and I look at the guy. I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, I'm okay. I said, well, your truck's okay. He had a tow hitch on the back of his truck, so there was no scratches whatsoever on his truck. But now the front of my bumper's all V'd in. And I'm like, well, you're okay. Your truck's okay. I'm out of here. And I slapped him on his back, and I jumped in my truck, and I took off. I knew if the cops came, I was getting arrested for DUI. My truck was getting impounded, and I was not trying to hear all of that. So I get back to my buddy's house. I'm like, dude, I was like, I can't stay here. I was like, I got to leave and go figure this out. I just can't stay here. I just got to be by myself. So I grab my stuff, stop at the liquor store, and I get 10 more of my miniatures. And I go and I park my truck at a parking lot where people park for the day and either grab a train or a bus and go to work, and they pick up their vehicle at the end of the day. And park my truck, turn my phone off. I don't want to hear from nobody. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I wanted to sit in my truck and listen to sad ass music and do a pity party about everything that I've screwed up in my life. All the disappointments I've done to people, One thing I will say, thank God I was never physically abusive to my family, but I sure as hell said the meanest, nastiest things to the people I love the most. Um, and I thought about that, about all the things I would say to my kids, my wife, and my mom, and just really, tell myself, they're better off without me. My wife is better off with a new man. My kids deserve a better father. My mom deserves a better son. And I sat there for 2 days and wallowed in my sorrows and drank and passed out and drank and passed out and drank and passed out. And finally, on the second day, after having my phone off for 48 hours, I reached down and I turned my phone on at 7 after 10. At 9 after 10, the phone rings 2 minutes later. And I remember looking down and it says Westchester, Pennsylvania. And I have no idea. And I pick it up and it's my childhood friend, Brandon Novak.
Now,
And
before tell people who Brandon Novak is, just so they know who we're talking about.
Okay, so Brandon Novak is a childhood friend of mine that I grew up with. He's a professional skateboarder. He was also one of the members of Jackass, the movies, and he is Bam Margera's best friend. He was featured in Viva La Bam for a couple years. He was the guy in the crew that had the worst addiction out of all of them: heroin addiction, alcoholism, opioid addiction. His story is a miracle in itself. He overdosed 13 times, been put on life support 4 times. Um, his addiction was so bad that his friends and family and mother bought grave plots for him because they were just waiting for him to die. Some of his friends took out life insurance policies on him because they were waiting for him to die. In and out of like 27 treatment facilities, I believe, until finally he got sober. At the last treatment center that he was in, he walked in and he'd been there like 3 or 4 times, and they were like, "How many more times you have in you? Is this going to be the last time you're walking in?" And he said he was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and he made the decision to get the help finally for himself, not all these other people telling him to go in, not his friends telling him you need to get help, you're going to die. He finally made that choice to finally get the help that he needed to save his life. And when he called me, I'm coming up on 21 months. He has 7 years sober now. So he was about 4.5 years sober at this point when he called me. And he calls me and he says, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm cold, I'm drunk, I'm hungry, and I'm tired. And I'm going to say what he says because it got depth. And he says, "Lodgen, what the fuck are you doing?" And I said, "I'm cold, I'm drunk, I'm hungry, and I'm tired." And he says, "Good motherfucker. That's what you need. I just got off the phone with your wife and your mom. I have a plane ticket set for you this evening, and I got you in the Banyan Treatment Centers down West Palm Beach, Florida. I want you to get on that plane and go get your life back." He hangs up. I'm like, well, I'm like, I kind of did the okay thing because I really didn't want to hear what he had to say, but I was just agreeing with him. "Okay, man. Okay, I hear you. And hung up. Like 5 minutes goodbye, my wife calls me. She says, "Hey, where are you?" And I said, I'm at the parking lot a couple miles down the street." She's like, "Please come home. I just got off the phone with Brandon. Pack your bags, take a shower, try to take a nap, and try to get some food in your belly before you have to leave." I'm like, okay. So I go home and I pack my bags and I take a shower. Couldn't eat and I couldn't sleep. I'm having an anxiety attack. I'm having a panic attack. I'm now thinking about, oh my God, I got to go to rehab now in Florida. For how long? 3 months? 60 days? 6 months? How long is this program? I can't believe my life has gotten this bad that I have to go now to a different state, to a rehabilitation center, and fight this disease of alcoholism. I can't do it. And I'm sitting on my bed and I'm talking myself out of it. I can't do it. I can't be away from my family, not realizing that I've been away from my family for a very long time, just not in the physical form. But I haven't been present for my family for years. And I'm like, I can't do this. I'm sitting on my bed and, I think my addiction knew that it had to try one last time to take my life. Maybe it knew something that I didn't, that this was the moment that I was going to change my life. But it had one last time to try to take it. And my addiction steps in and says, walk with me. I'll take the pain away. And it walks me to the basement of my home. And I throw a rope around my neck. And I stand up on a bucket in the home where my children live. I stand up and I put the rope around my neck and I'm crying. Just want the pain to go away. And that's all I wanted, was the pain to go away, and I didn't know how. And my wife realizes I'm not in the bedroom, and she comes down to the basement of her home, and she looks at me standing in the corner, standing on a bucket with a rope around my neck, hysterically crying. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I can't do it. I can't. I just want the pain to stop. And she looks at me and she says, Tim, do you know what this will do to your little girls? Please, please get down and get on that plane. Please get down and everything will be okay. I stood up there for about another 30 seconds, I think, and then I took it off. I fall to the floor and I fall into a ball and I cry for about 5, maybe 10 minutes. I remember just crying. And I go up to the stairs of my home and I pick up my phone and I call my friend Brandon. I'm like, hey, I gotta go. If I don't go tonight, this disease is going to kill me. I say, and I don't want that. And all he says is, I'm proud of you. I love you. Call me when you pass security, because I want to make sure you're getting on that plane and not catching a cab and leaving the airport. So, okay, man, okay. Mom comes and picks me up a couple hours later, drops me off at the airport. I get past security. I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, buddy, I got 35 minutes till the plane leaves. I want to let you know I'm getting on. I'm going. And all he says is, I'm proud of you. I love you. You're about to get back everything that you've ever lost times 10. And he hangs up the phone. That's it. As I go to sit down at this seat at the airport, as I sit down at this seat, I get this overwhelming feeling of hope that comes over my entire body. It was a warm blanket feeling that I've never felt before in my life. Nothing like drugs and alcohol have ever made me feel. My body tingled. I was warm. And I got this feeling that comes over of calmness. My panic, my worry, my doubt, my fear, my anxiety all seemed to leave my body all at once. And I hear this very soothing, calming woman's voice that I've never heard before, I've never heard since, simply come in my head. And she says, everything is going to be okay. The experience that I had in that airport was something that I had to acknowledge. If I were to dismiss that experience, I would have not been able to understand this long journey that I was meant to go through, not suffer through, what I was meant to go through. I truly believe at that airport, I had a spiritual awakening. I had a spiritual experience. I'm coming up in 21 months, and there has not been one day that I have thought about drugs or alcohol. There is not one craving that I've ever had about drugs or alcohol. I stopped trying to explain these things that have happened to me. I had a divine intervention. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. It changed my mindset. It changed my cravings. It changed everything about me. And when I got to rehab, I didn't miss any meetings. I went to extra meetings for military members and veterans. I shared, I volunteered. I helped with a morning meeting for people before the meetings. And I'll share something which I forgot to tell you beforehand, but I started doing this morning meeting after this gentleman handed me this book. And he says, I'm leaving. I would like for you to continue doing this meetings. And then when you're about to leave, you find somebody else and hand it to them so they can continue these meetings, because these meetings really help us before the actual meeting, where it's more structured and we got to write stuff down. You're looking up at a board. And so I'm like, okay. So we went from 5 people to 15 people to the last week or so when I was doing it, we're about 20, 25 people. I'm like, wow, look at this. All these people come in the morning. We had a daily reflection, a word for the day, and then we ended with a prayer. And all these people are showing up out of their own free will, that this establishment is not making them come to, that they want to hear something, some type of hope or enlightenment or some type of motivation for the day to help them start their day.
Right.
It comes Easter Sunday, and I go outside and I have my book, and I'm about to go read to the normal people that I read every morning. And I walk outside of my room and I go down the steps. I go out into the courtyard where the pavilion is, or the canopy, sorry. And I look over, and there's like 50 some people standing there. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here? One of the counselors walk over to me and she says, all these people want to hear what you have to say this morning. It's too many people to do it outside. We're going to open up conference room A and have everybody come in the building, and you can stand up front and read what you have to read. And since it's Easter Sunday, we want to read a verse out of the Bible. And this lady, Miss Donna over here, she's a gospel singer. She would like to sing 2 songs for everybody and kind of have an Easter Sunday kind of, I'm sorry, a reading today. I said, okay. So we go in, the whole room fills up. There's 52, 55 of us. I'm standing at the front of the room, and I read the daily reflection, the word for the day, and then a final prayer. And then this lady comes up and she sings 3 beautiful songs. I remember one of them was 3 wooden crosses. I remember that specifically. It just, it spoke to me. And I was never really never listened to gospel. I never believed in any of that. But that song that she sang, it actually teared me up. And then at the end of it, we sang Hallelujah. Again, I was never religious. I was never depth in faith. I never believed anything else was out there until all these little subtle things kept happening to me. And at the end of it, they took everybody out. A couple of the counselors came up to me and they said, we have never seen that before. And I said, what do you mean? They're like, we know that you do these morning meetings outside. She's like, but for all those people to show up and listen to what you had to say, they're like, that was truly amazing. We've never experienced that here. And some of them been counselors there for like 10 years, 15 years. She said, that has never happened before. And I remember one of the head people come over to me. They're like, you have a gift for speaking. You need to speak. You need to tell your story. I'm like, nah. This was just something that this gentleman passed on to me and told me to do. And I'm honoring what he asked me to do.
You froze up. Uh-oh.